week I've been meditating on two passages in Psalms. They are quite interesting. And the first one is from Psalms 34 and verses 3 to 5. Psalm 24, verse 3 to verse 5. It says, "Who may ascend into the hill of the Lord, or who may stand in his holy place? He who has clean hands and a pure heart, who has not lifted up his soul to an idol, nor sworn deceitfully, he shall receive blessing from the Lord and righteousness from the God of his salvation." But focus on verse 3. "Who may ascend into the hill of the Lord, or who may stand in his holy place?" Now, there's another passage that David wrote. It's Psalms 15 and verses 1 and 2. And it sounds almost identical. So let's just look at the first two verses. "Lord, who may abide in your tabernacle? Who may dwell in your holy hill? He who walks uprightly and works righteousness and speaks the truth in his heart." I want you to see a comparison over here. Verse 24, or chapter 24, talks about ascending up to the hill of the Lord. Chapter 15 talks about abiding in his tabernacle. One talks about ascending, the other one talks about abiding. One talks about standing in God's presence. The other one talks about dwelling in his presence. When you stand, it's for a momentary experience because you won't stand there forever. You'll leave the place. But when you're dwelling, you're talking about a continuous communion, almost something permanent that causes you to carry with you every single day of your life. You see, God yearns for us to ascend out of ourselves and come into an abiding relationship in Him, to abide in Christ, to abide in God. More than 160 times, the Bible talks about being in Christ, being in Christ. John 15 talks about abiding in Christ, abiding in Christ. Now, then there's another interesting passage. In the Old Testament, God told His people, Leviticus chapter 26, verses 11 to 12, "I will set my tabernacle among you, and my soul shall not abhor you. I will walk among you and be your God, and you shall be my people." So God talks about walking among us, dwelling among us, being among us. But when we come to the New Testament, this passage was quoted again. It was quoted by Paul in Corinthians, 2 Corinthians chapter 6. But Paul took the liberty, because of what Jesus Christ had done on the cross, he changed the preposition a little bit. He says, "I will dwell in them and walk in them, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people." From walking among you to dwelling, or to be walking in you. From dwelling among you to be dwelling in you. So you see, something happened because of Jesus Christ. God brings us into a continuous communion with Him, which is what He's yearning for. So often, my little boy Dayan and his church friends will come and stay in our homes. In fact, most weekends I have one of his church mates coming and spending the weekend with us, or during the holiday seasons. And when they come to our house, there'll be lots of food, lots of fun, games, playing soccer, watching television. Sometimes, especially if it's over a long weekend, they will stay for 2 nights, sometimes 3 nights. And then they will come and say to us, "Pastor Kong, Auntie San, thank you for all the food. We enjoy ourselves. We'll never forget this weekend, but goodbye, we're going home. Bye." They will leave. But my little boy, Dayan, he will stay in the house. He's not going to go anywhere. Why? Because this is home. He wants to be close to Daddy. He wants to be close to mommy. In fact, every single day, I miss him. Sometimes I miss him so much, I just got to call him up just to hear his voice. What are you doing now? Just want to hear his sometimes whiny voice. Yeah, Dad. It's the same with God. God allows us, and He extends His visit for us to come into His kingdom. He shares His glories with us. He whips up the best spiritual food so that we are fed, so that we enjoy a touch from Him. But you know what? Some will bid Him goodbye and say, God, man, that one touch from you, I will never forget for the rest of my life until the day I die. But others would say, Father, where can I go from your presence? I want to dwell in your presence continuously. I want to linger in your presence permanently. Because once we have a taste, a foretaste of the goodness of God, it should develop a desire in us, a hunger in us to want to permanently dwell in His presence.